out of the, let's say, the hardcore scientific field, the hardcore scientific community, really understand that time is not an illusion, but is an actual fact in the form of a field. Without a blackboard and such, I cannot give you much of an idea what I'm talking about, but I'll attempt to do this, shall we say, off the cuff without actual physical representation. The gravity field, the electric field, and the magnetic field are all interlocked. If you consider or mentally look at an idea of, let's say, a triangle, an equilateral triangle of some size, point up, you can assign it in any way you wish, but at the 3 points, the 3 apexes of this equilateral triangle, one will be E for electric field, one will be H for the magnetic field, and the other will be G for gravitic field. If you interconnect these fields by electronics and electronic means, and that takes a great deal of math, and it took many years to understand how to do it, but this is what Tesla came up with, and of course the rest of the people at the Institute. You set up electronics and electronic means to properly interact with these 3 fields, you then access automatically the time field. When you access the time field, and this of course is in a small localized area, depending upon how much power you put into this, you access it and you can manipulate the time field within a small, or perhaps not quite so small, area for effects which are local. If you visualize a donut, this would be the easiest way to do it. A toroid, but let's say a donut, which everybody I think has seen. But a toroidal structure resembling a donut. This thing is a closed circuit. Time is a closed loop. This is very advanced math, very vast concepts, in which there is quite literally no beginning and no ending. There is a point which one can say is plus and minus infinity. This is a mathematical concept, which perhaps doesn't have any direct feeling in reality. But this is a concept. There is a point, you might say, is the beginning and the ending, the alpha and the omega. And you can go through that point, but we're not there. We're at some point in the time field, and in the terms of this torus or donut, if one describes a line around the edge, such as a full circumferential line, enclosing the torus, enclosing this donut, this is the reality line of time as we understand it, time being 3 vectors, but the first vector, T1, the so-called 4th dimension, is time as we know it, time as we measure it with a clock, as we can measure it astronomically by the movement and the position of the stars. This is fairly easy to grasp. Time also has another aspect, another vector called T2, which is at right angles with the first. Now, if the time we understand and measure is along the edges of this torus, or this donut, if you look at the donut as a 3-dimensional object, you can describe a certain amount of circumferential rotation around it. You can literally trace around the donut fully around one edge, and as you go, if it's a helix, you go around the whole donut describing it. This is T2. It is at right angles to the linear flow, and this right angle coil, if you will, is the second vector of time. We don't measure that, but it is the one which controls T1. Now what we were doing, and we're speaking now theoretically, is accessing the time field, and in order to access time itself, if I use that term, you have to go 1 order higher in order to affect everything that's below it. Going 1 order higher is when you go to T2 and you affect T2, and therefore you can control within that limited area that you're working with, because the force of the electronics and the artificial field you create doesn't go through the whole Earth and through the whole universe. It's very much restricted